Make a decision to change the next generation of your family. If you grew up in an environment where you did grow up on junk food and that was just the way that you lived, that doesn't mean that you have to perpetuate that with your child. Like you talked about earlier, our food is different now, and it is going to affect them differently than it affected us, and it's much more prevalent. I don't remember ever seeing a lot of that when I was with my mom running errands and going places. It wasn't out there. So keep that in mind. Make the decision to be the heavy. Don't be afraid to tell your kids no. You can't outsource your child's health. It's not the school's job. It's not the coach's job. I know that as moms, a lot of us that work, it's really hard, and we have someone else helping take care of our children. Make sure that person's on the same page. Make sure they're not giving them something different while you're gone, and that can be challenging too. I dealt with that for a while. I'd come home and my 18-month-old would be eating, French fries and a Fanta from the walk to Whataburger from the park, and I'm going, what are you feeding her? So just, stay on top of it. Try to give your kids, real food that's not in a bag or a wrapper. Maybe that can be hard too, but if you take a little bit of time to plan ahead, sometimes on Sundays I'll kind of figure out what I'm going to do for the week if I have time. If you give them real food that's on the perimeter of the grocery store, fruits and vegetables and nuts and things like that, and you stay away from the middle, you will avoid high fructose corn syrup and genetically modified food and all the things that we're talking about that are chemicals that you can't inject into a carrot or an apple. Those are things that are put into packaged goods. So just make a decision, and this is what I tell myself, at least if my kids turn out a certain way, it's my fault. I can't blame anybody else. I'm going to take responsibility to do the best I can. It would be horrible in 15 years if I thought, oh gosh, my kids are sick and this isn't working, and I didn't step in and take charge. So just like we talk about here in school, empower your kids. Kids get frustrated as they get older because they want more control over everything in their life. I'm seeing a lot of this lately with a 12-year-old, and that includes food, because food is something your kids can have control over, and the older they get, the less time they spend with you, they're with friends. So, if you have young kids, the time is really now to instill this with them. Children have free will, and this is what I talked about at Episcopal too, to these guys. I said, you have free will. I said, you need to understand both the long-term and short-term consequences of what you're putting into your body. There is a direct relationship between food and academic performance, and food and athletic performance, and make it personal for them. Every child, just like all of us, is motivated by something. Something motivates you, whether it's reward, financial, whatever it is. You need to figure out what your child, and most of you I'm sure already know, what motivates your child. Each child is different, and so use that to help get them where you need to be. You also will have to compromise, so come up with your own set of rules and compromises. I know a lot of you have probably read about the 90-10 rule or the 80-20 rule, and 80% of the time we eat this way, 20% of the time it's a free-for-all. It doesn't have to be 100% this, because nobody can sustain that. We live in a modern world. We have to survive in a modern world. So, have some flexibility, but, teach them what marketing is. Teach them why it works and how it works. One of the things are any of you guys familiar with Jamie Oliver? Do you know him? I listened to an incredible speech that he gave on TED, actually, and he coined this new term called the Globo Child. I don't know if any of you guys have heard of that. Maybe, I don't know if you've, maybe. And what he talks about in this speech, and as part of this food revolution, he says that America's children, and now overseas as well, are rapidly losing a sense of history, culture, where they came from, their individuality, and so and I added some words to this, but this was basically his concept, that our kids are rapidly becoming one big homogenous Disney watching, Xbox playing, fast food eating, constant texting, iPad playing, reality TV show watching, and these are his words, boring group of people. And which is, I feel like that's true. I see that happening. I see everybody wants to be the same. Everybody wants to be, you know, I want this, I want this, I want this, to be like that person. And it's, especially with the electronics. And, you know, this is the next generation of leaders of our country. You know, as a nation, these kids are becoming, you know, homogenous. So teach your child that it's okay to be different. It's okay to, food is one way to be different, making different choices about food. You don't have to, you know, eat junk because the kids around you are eating junk. Food is one way that you can make a stand and make a difference. So just to finish once again, like I talked about, you know, being the heavy, don't be afraid to be the heavy. You know, don't be a nutritional wimp. Don't be afraid to stand up for your child if they can't stand up for themselves or if they're young. Like she was talking about, ask for better options. By doing so, you're going to teach them to stand up for themselves as well, which is really key. Food education is the key to their health, and it may not be convenient. But you know, you want your kids, like we talked about earlier as well, to be streetwise, not just about the world around them, but food as well. And food is an integral part of the world around them. So they've got to be streetwise. And you know, this is a lot of information. And don't, you know, this is not easy. I'm not saying that it's easy. Do I get tired of telling my kids no all the time? Yes, of course. It drives me crazy. Are they perfect? No. Am I perfect? No. But you know, someone once told me a long time ago, we're actually talking in the context of marriage and how sometimes things are hard, and they said, you know, nothing worth anything is ever easy. If it's worth it, it's hard. So, you know, this past week I thought, this falls into that category. It's hard, but it's worth it. You know, I want grandkids. I want them to have, I want great grandchildren. I want my kids to be okay. And, you know, I feel like, you know, you have to work at what you believe in, whether it's a job or a relationship. That's important to you. And I feel like in the end, your work's going to pay off. So these are a few steps you can take if you guys want to go online later. I love Allergy.Kids. It's a great website. Robin O'Brien, who actually is a native Houstonian and went to St. John's, wrote a phenomenal book called Unhealthy Truth. This is her actually foundation, Allergy Kids Foundation. They have a lot of great information if you want to go on their newsletter as well. Very basic, not printable, easy to follow. And then this is what I wrapped up with. At Episcopal as well, we were talking about the body's a temple. I love this verse, 1 Corinthians 6:19-20. Do you not know that your body is a temple of the Holy Spirit who is in you, whom you have received from God? You are not your own. You were bought at a price. Therefore, honor God with your body. And I just, you know, I feel like it applies to food as well. So I wanted to put that. So thank y'all for having me here today. About an hour. So I'll open up now for Q&A. If you guys, if anybody has any questions at all, I'm happy to answer. Yeah.
Does your book tell us, challenge number one is my issue, like they will not try anything. Like, you put it in front of them, I literally, you know, the hand said in the mouth, no, like, I'm not doing that. So does your book tell you?
It
like,
does. And this is, originally, my plan was to write a book, just to kind of broadly touch on all these topics for parents. It can be a quick, easy, like 100-page guide that they can take, but at the end of it takes a lot longer, because I felt like having the information about what's in our food, it wasn't enough. And so I have a good portion of it has a behavioral component and what to do, and how to instill all these behaviors that we're talking about. So yes, it does talk about it. I talk a lot about logic and some different interesting that I think are really helpful, and just my experience. Yeah, it does.
My kid did the same. She's brought it out.
just keep trying. Just keep that.
I'm sure there's other stuff too.
She's right. Your persistence pays off, and you can't give up. You know.
As a child.
You have 3 bottles of everything on your plate.
Period. Not negotiable. Yeah. And sometimes it may come back up, which happens sometimes at our house. With Miss Gigi. But you know, it's just, you have to, children are great. They sense weakness. You know, if you back down one night at dinner, I notice like the rest of the week, it's just like they go because they think that I'm going to back down again. And it's not always fun. But I have seen how it's affected my oldest daughter so much to change the way that we were feeding her. And granted, a lot of her issues revolved around certain types of food, not necessarily, you know, she had a big milk allergy, and you know, I was listening to my pediatrician who was very well intentioned and going, she's giving me 20 ounces of milk a day, and so I was, you know, making them take milk races, and she was dying. I mean, she couldn't breathe, she couldn't walk. I mean, and it, you know, it took us like 4 years to figure out that she was allergic to milk. And so there are a lot of different pieces to this. Like I said, this is just, I broadly, and I go into a lot more detail once you get in the book about how to identify if that could be happening to your child, what are some signs to look for, what you can do, what to ask the doctor. I touched a little bit on all the different topics that I felt like I wish I had known the answers to 12 years ago when I started working.
You might be a real addiction.
Sugar, absolutely. That's what we talked about. I mean, if they're eating only white pasta that's, you know, highly processed, high glycemic, it turns the sugar on the stimulation in their body. And so yes, it's an addiction.
So how do you treat that? I mean, like AA or something. How do you treat that?
It's just what we're talking about. They have to be eating a variety. They need protein, they need starch, they need vegetable, because the combination of all these foods reacts together to keep that sugar from moving the bloodstream, causing it to have ups and downs. And balance out other foods, they're not going to react the same way. So it's like we just start giving them
John Matthews, who started Whole Foods, says that the United States is addicted to sugar, caffeine, sugar, salt, and fat. And but we talk about comfort foods, and something that we find comfort is in eating. And he said he changed the way that he ate, and he's not eating macaroni and cheese. He said it didn't happen overnight, but he has comfort in broccoli and lemon versus macaroni and cheese.
It is habit as well.
But that's his kind of theory on.
Well, right, and you think about all the things that you see when you go to the gas station, it's all salty and sweet. And then I kind of cut some things out today just to save some time, but you know, that's on purpose. I mean, they make everything really salty and sweet to draw you back. And I did skip over because what I thought on that was it's really hard for us as parents. If your kids get addicted, which they do, to those really highly seasoned, sweet and salty foods, it's very difficult to get their palate to accept because it does taste bad. I mean, if you think about it, of course it's going to taste different from a quesadilla, you know, covered in whatever. I mean, it's different. So you have to expose them from a very early age to all the different flavors and continue to do that. Otherwise, I mean, it's going to be a battle. It's not that it's not doable. You're going to have to undo before you get it. I do. And I'll talk to you about that afterwards. That's also a big portion of my book about the importance of breakfast and loading them up on. Yes, I'll talk to you about that.
And what is your take on, I mean, I know organic is better, but both of my kids love strawberries and then the other strawberries. And organic strawberries are crazy expensive. And as much as they eat, and they go bad so quickly. So is it giving them regular strawberries, non-organic? That's a loaded question. They say that.
Here's what I tell my kids, and you're the same. Some, they love watermelon, and I tell them, you know what, it's not a season, I can't buy it. Because what happens is if they like the berries that are in season from May to September, they are more reasonable. They're not cheap, but they're much better than if you buy them right now. They're going to be $6 a pound, $5, whatever it is. And if they do a lot, so they can just chill the standards out in school if they're out. So I have, and it's much better, which I talked about a little bit too. I talked about eating seasonally and what the foods that are coming out of the ground and growing during a certain season can help your body combat illnesses for that season. So I have now just told my kids, great grapefruit season, or it's watermelon season, whatever it is, and just buy the fruit that's really in that season. Sorry, you can't buy it. I think that's better than serving them pounds and pounds of the strawberries are very popular on the spring frozen. Or you know what you can do? You can buy like frozen berries that are organic and do like a strawberry smoothie. You know, if they need to get that fixed, you can do it that way.
Yeah, I have a question about the best type of bread for your kids. Say you need to make a sandwich as opposed to go to the fast food and you need to fast food. And the bread, the whole wheat, or just a do you think that they're going to get used to that?
That's a great question. Because I've come full circle on that. Once again, I think what you start them out on, they will accept. So I don't know if you guys have Ezekiel bread or what Ezekiel bread. Very dense. I started eating it after GP because I wasn't having some issues with gluten after I had her. Someone recommended it to me, so I switched. So when she started school, I made her a little organic grilled cheese sandwich on Ezekiel bread, which is like a rock. I mean, literally, it's tiny. It's hard. But she didn't know it, and that's what I always gave her. So she was happy with that for years. The other children, they were like, this isn't bread. So I'm definitely anti-white bread. You know, there's the full spectrum. If you're desperate for your child to eat bread or only eat white bread, find my organic white bread, or at least try my like fresh baked bread. Go to the store instead of buying something that's been on the shelf for weeks and weeks. It has to be white. It has to be at least by David Bakery. You get it. I know that the Whole Foods now has like a homemade, you know, one organic, one not white bread. So you know, sometimes they'll say, "Please buy all that." And I'll say, "This is right, but it's organic." And I tell them what they're eating so they know that I haven't completely gravitated away from what's important. And I'll say, okay, next week we're going to get multi-seed, you know, whatever, and we'll do a variety that yes, this week we're going to go from her. So I think you just have to gauge your child and take a lesson or two labels, but definitely read labels. If the bread's got a high fructose corn syrup in it, you know, there are many options now when it comes to bread. Sometimes I buy gluten-free, like I'll buy gluten-free hamburger buns. I don't know what but we just kind of rotate around to keep exposing them to different types of foods and flavors so they don't get stuck on one thing. Because when they get stuck, that's not, I feel like, you have to unstick it.
So I am good soy, just like how much left and you said about soy consistency.
Soy, if it's organic, it's totally fine. There are a lot of questions right now. I had a friend that just had breast cancer, and they have told her you may never have soy again. And so she's struggling with this, like, so I can eat nothing in a wrapper ever again. I mean, it's in everything. There's some, you know, there's some controversy around whether soy, even if it's organic, is good for women that are premenopausal. Sorry, Richie. Because of what it does to your hormones, and it increases estrogen production in your body, which has been tied to breast cancer and other cancers. But once again, unless you're eating it, you know, you have to be aware, unless you're eating it every single day, you know, 3 weeks out of the month, I don't think it's a problem. But I do think that with the young children and having 3 girls, I'm very careful about how much of that they're exposed to. And if you go out to get Chinese or Japanese food and they bring edamame, it's not going to be organic. But is 1 day a month a huge problem? No. Yeah, you know, you just have to kind of gauge where you are that week or that, you know, it's always going to change. But once again, you know, just knowing it, you can make that decision. But it's great. I mean, you can go buy big, huge, I think Costco even may have organic, I know they have big bags of edamame, but they have, you know, they may even have organic, huge bags of frozen. And that, if they love that, that's great. It's really good, you know. If they're drawn to it, give it to them. Anybody else?
I'm not sure how successful it is, but we were trying to get the expert training on garden.
Yeah, that's great.
In our lawn. I have a brown
can buy organic soil, organic seeds, all it's easy to find. I wasn't that successful. I don't have the black time, but I can help you.
These chemicals that we talk about for the kids, their developmental phases, how is it affecting us? Do those have the same negative effects on us as far as eating allergies and stuff like that?
Yeah, and it's not just the children that are getting heavier. This is, the 68% of Americans. And of course it affects us. I'm talking about the kids today because that's my business and that's why. But absolutely.
Even the allergy side of it is probably increasing adult allergies.
Of course. Food is food, and it affects all of us. Some people may not be able to have gluten or dairy. You have to pay attention to your child and kind of, I say be a healer, or a team of healers, you have your doctor and yourself, and whoever's helping you, it's kind of your job to just get aware of how they're reacting to certain things and not doing that. Stephanie and I have talked about this. She just worked out that, you're going to come up against a lot of walls, and you're going to get frustrated and you guys can't do this anymore. And then you can step back and give yourself a break and then pick it up again and keep on going until you get to a place where it's challenging because of all the things we just talked about today. You have to work. You have to read and talk to other parents. It's a great way to get her information. My kid has the same problem. How do you fix it? And you find that, you get a solution in your child's been sick for 4 years and you figure out immediately how to help them.
Is there any, you mentioned the U.S. allows these certain things, is there any group that's going against this policy and trying to get things reversed?
Slowly but surely. You think about, we'll talk about that later. Yes. But I feel like, this is what I argue with my husband, he said, please stop spending money on all this healthy food. And I said, you know what, I feel like I've seen a huge change in the past 2 years of our prices, availability. You can go to Costco and have cart this big full of organic food, which was not there 10 years ago. Same to Walmart. And I said, I feel like it's my job to vote with my wallet. Because if we don't buy it, this country is supply and demand, period. People demand and ask for it and want it, they're going to make it for it. It's going to happen. They get to a tipping point where they have to do it. But in the corn industry, Monsanto, that's a whole different. There's a lot of money.
How tight are the rules on when you label something organic?
Very. If it says USDA organic, the rules are very tight. You are getting organic food. If it says all natural, blah, 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 that means nothing. Truthfully, it means, I was going to mention earlier on the labeling, now instead of writing MSG, because people have gotten smart, it's called natural flavors. So anytime you buy something on the label and it says natural flavors, that means MSG. So it's just they change it all the time so that you can't get rid of it. Okay, let's wrap up. I guess we got time for one more question.
Yeah. So does that mean that it's organic?
Correct. Because they have very, very, very basic to qualify. They have to go through it, like just for example, if it's a vegetable, the soil has to have been completely, no chemicals, anything for 3 years before they even start their planting cycle. So they're very, very strict. Nothing's been sprayed, nothing's been, you can get online and read. There's no sewage sludge used to fertilize. Like I was saying, natural means nothing. It may mean fewer chemicals, but there's no regulation on personal care products, Walgreens, whatever, or food. Zero. The word natural can be used. Doctor recommended can be used on anything. There's no regulation at all.